to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning and welcome to the May 20th County Commission meeting. I remind you to silence your cell phones. There are meeting documents on the end of the counter in that black folder. And if you need a listening device, Ken is in the front row and he can help you with a listening device. That being said, let's go for it.
Routine business. The first item would be to consider a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Second item under routine business is a motion to approve the county commission minutes of 5/13/2014.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Are there any additions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Third item is bills to be paid in the amount of $1,213,840.50.
Pay the bills with a comment.
I have a motion to pay the
Second.
bills with a second, with a comment from Commissioner Barth.
Our bills are quite a bit larger than last week's, but I just would say in IT we spent $200,000 on software, $100,000 on computers. Our new service for the jail got $250,000. In the human services, the maximum we will pay for a person's electric bill is $420. Today there are 11 bills of $420. And finally, we have 152 individual bills for mental illness.
I have a motion and a second to pay the bills. Are there any additional comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Reports.
The reports, item number 4, the Register of Deeds official statement of fees collected during April 2014 and the auditor's account with the county treasurer as of April 2014. We don't need any action on that. Okay. Personnel actions with Carrie Deaver. We have consider a motion to approve routine personnel actions.
Is there a motion to...
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve routine action. Are there any additional comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
The application for abatements, there are none. Notice and a request, item number 7 is notice from the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Sioux Empire and the Brennan Rock and Roll Academy to conduct a fundraising raffle to benefit the mission of the Brennan Rock and Roll Academy.
Would move for approval.
This is just a notice.
Oh,
We
it's
don't need
just a notice.
approval.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
That's right, I was ready to
Planning and zoning notices, we have none. But item number 9, we have a petition for compromise of lien, and I see Mr. Peckus is scheduled to do that. However, he's not here. But it involves DPNO number 58675 for the amount of $1,701.10 and DPNO 56895 for the amount of $4,010.93.
Ken, are you speaking to the DPNO?
I can. Good morning, Commissioners. This is an application that you actually considered last year in February. The applicant was attempting to refinance a home, and there were a number of liens that were not only in his name and his ex-wife's name as a single account, but there was another lien in her name only that had occurred after the divorce. And so that the action that was being sought after last year was to release the lien against the real estate upon payment of $638 for him, which was on DPNO 58675. That was a lien that was held jointly in he and his ex-wife's name. And then the lien would be released against the property with no payment on the ones that were just in his ex-wife's name. At that time, that was 56895. Subsequently to that action, there was another lien that was filed in his ex-wife's name only, and that was 62884. So the applicant's attempt to refinance last year was unsuccessful, so he did not complete the action on the compromise that was authorized back in February with the payment of $638. and he never did proceed with the payment. So now he's once again trying to refinance the home. These exact same liens have popped up the second time around, and he's asking for the same action that you approved back in February, is to release these liens against the real estate upon payment of him of $638.
Are there any questions for Ken? Commissioner Barth?
Ken, so the one lien should just be against his ex-wife, is that
There are
correct?
2 liens that should be just against his ex-wife, but we want them referenced. They would need to be referenced in the action that those liens are released against this real estate transaction against that property. And that would be DP&O 56895 and DP&O, 62884. In addition, then, the lien that's held jointly, which is 58675, that would be released against the real estate as well upon payment from him of $638 for that one.
Any other questions for Ken?
Yeah.
Commissioner?
Do we have any knowledge that the ex-wife has any equity in the house?
That, as it appears, there may have been some interest at the time when it was initially purchased, but during the divorce proceedings and everything, she's lost whatever equity. She turned over a quitclaim deed. And so that's one of the reasons there's a cloud on these titles.
And one other question. It appears that there has been no payments since last year when he was aware now, of the lien.
Correct.
There's been no attempt to do anything about it now.
Again, he came to you in February of last year, and you authorized this compromise upon the payment of $638. His refinancing fell through, and he never did come and make the $638 payment as a result. And so he's back a second time asking that you once again authorize that.
Commissioner Kelly, we aren't giving him any discounted rate. There won't be any discount on this. If we have him pay $638, he will be paying half of his share. He'll be paying his share.
But he's responsible for the whole thing, as is she.
As is she is on that one, yes.
Both of them are responsible for all of it.
On that one. On the one.
Yeah, and then I understand the other two
Are just
are
in
not
her
his at
name
all
only.
and probably
Correct.
should not be associated with the property.
Is the applicant here?
He is not.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I sort of see this as being 2 separate problems, and I guess, firstly, to separate the 2 that should belong just to the ex-wife, I'll make a motion to take this potential real estate transaction off of anything to do with the DP&Os 56895 and 62884, leaving them towards the now ex-wife.
The action would be simply to remove these 2 liens against the property. That's what we're asking for.
Okay,
on
that's
those
my
two.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to remove the liens against the property
On 2 of the liens.
on 2 of the liens, 56895 and 62884.
Correct.
Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Secondly, I guess I will make a motion to deny the other application. The parties had a year to show any kind of good faith, hasn't paid a nickel. We gave him a shot last year. He didn't do a thing about it. Even a $10 payment would have been nice to see. It didn't happen. I don't see his income tax on this.
Is that a motion or a comment?
It's both, sorry. I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion, but that's also...
Could I second?
I have a motion and a second to deny the compromise. Any other comments?
Now you can make comments.
I'll stand on my record.
I'm not going to support your motion just because I feel like that we still are getting 50%. The remaining 50% will remain on the wife. And so I'm going to not support your motion. So, any other comments? A roll call vote?
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennigan,
No.
Commissioner Barth,
Yes.
Commissioner Heiberger.
No. Motion is split 2-2. That means it will come back next week when Commissioner Peckus is here.
If he is
So,
here.
If he is here. When it comes back, it'll come back when there's 5 of us. So.
All right.
All right. This is the time for opportunity for public comment. Anyone who would like to speak on anything that's not on the current agenda may come forward now and identify yourself. As long as it's not on the current agenda.
I think mine might be on the current agenda, I just don't see it up here. Conditional use permit.
Yep, they were coming to that. Yep, you'll have an opportunity later. Yep. Yeah, next page.
There's copies of the agenda hanging right outside the door.
Yep. All right, we'll go on to regular business.
Can I have
Yep.
a question? On the last item we acted on, 2-2 is basically a failure of the motion to carry.
Yep.
Right.
Is it standard policy? I mean, it's not Robert's rules to bring it back the next week. I
We
know.
have to bring it, because any action of the county commission has to have 3 votes. And so since
Correct.
it did not, then we bring it back, that's an automatic bring back, so that the full commission has an opportunity to weigh in on the issue.
So, okay, all right. This is an automatic reconsideration, that's
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Move on to the regular business.
Question, do you have any comments on that?
Well, in any event, we could put it back on the agenda next week anyway, so unless somebody has another motion that they wanted to bring about the item to resolve it otherwise, you could have done that.
Okay.
Regular business. Item number 10 is a briefing regarding pending changes to the animal control contract with the Sioux Falls Area Humane Society involving the handling of livestock. Corey Beatty.
Good morning, Corey. And just identify yourself, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Corey Beatty, Sioux Falls Area Humane Society. I think we have sent through the notice of change. As all of you know, we do livestock as a courtesy and have for many, many years.
Hold the microphone down a little, thank you.
Okay, better?
Yeah.
We have done livestock as a courtesy for many, many years. The Animal Industry Board of South Dakota has now told us that they would rather not see us do that. We have been helping out law enforcement, when pigs fall off a truck or when cows, go out of a fence or whatever that might be. But right now, after a couple years ago, they had a raid on a property. And so since then, we've had a lot of problems going out onto farms. We're not involved with any other organizations like the Humane Society of the United States or any of those. We're a local group. So we have had a lot of issues going onto property. We don't want to trespass. The Animal Industry Board does want to take care of those livestock calls, the cruelty and neglect, and then as always, as we are in our profession, we are domestic pet related. So those are the changes that we're putting forth as of now. We also are getting raccoons, badgers, and other wildlife brought to our doors now, and baby raccoons, small badgers, possum, some of those types of things like that that are brought into the Humane Society, which obviously is a rabies problem for one. It's a public safety issue. So we are also asking to change the contract to read that the wildlife organization, the Game Fish and Parks, take care of those calls. So that's the basic realm of the changes.
This is just a briefing. Ken, do you have a comment?
As I understand, these changes will be effective June 1,
June 15th.
June 15th.
Yes. And we will always do emergency calls, no matter what. We've always done that, and we will certainly continue to do that. So it won't be a loss of any quality of service that way, but the livestock piece will not be in there, nor will the wildlife.
Commissioner Kelly.
Are these changes coming about because the animal board requested you to do this?
When we have gone out previously, and we've had cattle and pigs and everything else up at the Humane Society for storage, when we wait for an owner to come pick them up, they are really not interested in having us do that. They'd rather send out their veterinarians and also their staff to talk to these people and find out why, number one, their animals are getting out, and if they cause any sort of problems in the community, they also want to make sure that they're dealing directly with the livestock owners.
So, what kind of response? I mean, here's a cow on the road, black cow at night.
Right.
Your response time, I assume, was fairly quick. How long does it take
For the
these guys
most
to
part,
get out
law
there.
enforcement has been able to do a lot of those things, and they'll only call us in an emergency. So we really haven't done that many, honestly. As far as getting out there and having to go in the middle of the night. We did, a couple of years ago, had to do some horses out by McCrossing Boys Ranch. That was about a 3 in the morning call or something, so when they got out. But, for the most part, the law enforcement folks already know who those are, belong to, the horses or cattle or whatever it might be, and so they'll just contact the property owners in the rural community.
Commissioner Barth.
Well, I appreciate your work in this area anyway, because animals obviously are all over the place. And this is a little bit off, but what about raptor rescue? Where should a person take an injured owl or eagle or whatever?
Well, that is another thing that's come up just in the last couple of years. We do now have a local person for game fish and parks. So they actually have to have a raptor license. We don't have it at the Humane Society just because we don't have that capability of being able to take care of those types of animals. So we do call the game fish and parks. If somebody brings them in injured, we do keep them until they come and pick them up.
Okay,
So-
but the appropriate thing to do would be to call
Game Fish and Parks. Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, this was just a briefing, so
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Item number 11, to consider a resolution to participate in the bridge inspection program using South Dakota Department of Transportation Bridge Replacement Funds to hire Banner and Associates Incorporated. DJ Boothie.
Morning, Commissioners.
morning.
DJ Boothie, Highway Superintendent. March 11th, you approved a motion to hire Clark Engineering for the bridge inspections for Minnehaha County. And after March 11th, when we were in negotiations for the contract, the person that was going to be performing our bridge inspections became no longer employed with Clark Engineering. And so, since we had no contract, we decided to switch firms, and we are now requesting a motion to work with the state to hire Banner Associates of Sioux Falls to complete the bridge inspections.
Questions for DJ?
May I?
Mm-hmm.
DJ, have you inquired of Clark Engineering about this? Are they aware of this?
Yep, we've had a couple discussions back and forth.
And what was their sense of this?
Their sense was basically that they could still perform the work and that they would be able to complete it even though they lost that staff person, and we understand that. We were just wanting to work with that particular staff person that they lost.
Are you, if I may, one more question. Do you know if they made any preparations with their organization to honor this contract at this point or not?
I'm not sure. They were not under contract, and so my guess would be no. As far as hiring interns to help out with the contract or signing subcontracts or anything like that, I'm not aware of any of those.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other, Commissioner Barth?
So this was not a RFP, this was just professional services?
That's correct, yeah. The state of South Dakota is actually the contracting authority, and they send us a informational letter every single year that has a list of consultants to choose from, and then we pass a resolution indicating which consultant that we wish to work with, and then the state DOT, they negotiate with a consultant and execute a contract with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Looking for a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to participate in the bridge inspection program. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 12 is to consider a motion to approve the purchase of one Caterpillar 242D skid steer with options from Ziegler Incorporated for the Highway Department from a contract competitively bid by the state of Minnesota. DJ.
Commissioners, again, with this item, we have a significant cost savings with the capital improvement fund that we have established in our long-range plan. We have two items that we have budgeted for this year. We have a sweeper and a skid steer, totaling $115,000 for the two budgeted items. With this purchase, we will be hopefully purchasing a skid steer, and the price of that is about $50,000 or $46,000, I think. And then And then we added an attachment that is a pickup sweeper attachment that would replace the need for having a motorized sweeper, which was budgeted for. And so we can kill two birds with one stone, and for the total purchase value of $62,124, get the sweeper and the skid steer. And if you have any questions about that combination, I can answer them at this time.
Commissioner Barth.
DJ, this is off of a bid from the state of Minnesota, and it's from a company in Bloomington, Minnesota. Do we know that a local company would not have matched that bid if we put out an RFP?
Yeah, and the way that this is planning on work, we're actually working with Butler from Sioux Falls, and Caterpillar, they have territories assigned to their dealers, and because this is a Minnesota state bid, all of the pricing nationwide is basically the same. And so we're purchasing off of a Minnesota state bid, and since that contract was through Ziegler, that's who our invoice will come from. But because they have territorial jurisdiction, we'll still be working with Butler in Sioux Falls. Butler will service it. Butler is administering the sale, but the invoice will come through Ziegler.
So at the same time, though, DJ, if we'd had an RFP locally, it's possible a different company than a Caterpillar dealer might have bid on this as well, right? I mean,
absolutely, we could have gotten anything, and we do look through our purchasing policy. We look at other contracts all the time to see if we are able to purchase off a different competitively bid product, as long as that is a good price. And Butler through Sioux Falls did provide another bid from the city of Mobridge, and this was actually cheaper and a better product, a different attachment that was available, and that's why we're able to do this without going through a separate bidding process for the sweeper. And so we have investigated multiple purchasing options.
Madam Chair, I move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the skid loader for the Highway Department. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. DJ, we talked briefly on the phone about, or not on the phone, through email about possibility, and if we should just check with facilities and see if that surplus would be anything they'd be interested in, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And then once we receive the new machine, then we'll go through that process formally through the commission and make sure that everything gets transferred or surplus the way that we agree on.
Yeah, thank you.
Item number 13 is to consider a motion to approve the annual purchase of various aluminum traffic signs from Newman Signs. DJ.
On March 18th, we had you consider the award of our annual materials letting contracts, and proposal number 6 of the annual materials letting was for aluminum traffic signs. That bid was rejected due to bid irregularities. And so because that bid is less than $25,000, we don't need to do a formal advertisement alone separately for that proposal. We've since negotiated with the 3 vendors that are interested in providing that service for us and solicited formal quotes for the sign contract. And Newman Signs out of Jamestown, North Dakota has been identified as the vendor that we would like to work with, providing the least cost for the overall contract. And so if you have any questions about the quotes or about Newman Signs, I can answer them now. Otherwise, we'd request your approval to move forward with the contract with Newman Signs.
Any questions for DJ?
Just
I'm
have-
going to ask Commissioner Barr.
So will the townships be able to buy under this contract too then?
They can. That's not the way that our contract is structured, but similar to how we are requesting the purchase off the Minnesota state
Right.
bid, they can do that same type of purchasing.
Thanks.
I move for approval.
I
Second.
have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of aluminum signs. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item number 14 is a briefing from the Minnehaha County Highway Department regarding traffic counts on 479th Avenue before and after Highway 121 closure. We have Jason Reeves.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jason Reeves, Project Engineer, Highway Department. About a month ago, April 15th, at a meeting here, we discussed the township, Edison Township, reducing the speed limit on this section of roadway to 45 miles an hour. And in our discussion, you'd requested us bringing further information to you on traffic counts for this roadway. Prior to the construction, this roadway received approximately 20 vehicles per day. And then after we closed Highway 121 to start the bridge work at Highway 122, it does appear that a significant portion of Aros's people are using this roadway as a week span from May 5th to May 9th. We had an average of 196 cars per day on this 2-mile section of roadway. We did leave it on there one day longer just to see what happens during a rain event, and it rained most of Sunday and some of Monday, and it did drop to 113 vehicles that day. So it seems as though they're staying away from it a little bit when it rains, but we're still at a pretty healthy amount at 113 a day there. Edison Township has put on some crushed rock on this road. The first rain events that we had on it were very slick. I drove it myself, and it was not a real comfortable drive in a Tahoe. So, but they did put some washed rock on it. It appears as though it stabilized the roadway really well. It has rained since then, and I've driven down it, and it's definitely better than it was. So that's an improvement to the road. They haven't put up their speed limit signs, which we discussed a month ago, and I'm kind of unsure why, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It is their responsibility, as the township road is their jurisdiction. They asked for approval of it, but they haven't put them up. We've told them to, call in locates and where to locate them at, but they haven't put them up. But my experience, I go out there a couple times a week, and I don't think traffic's driving 55 on it. I would say 40 to 45 is probably the average speed on the road. So I don't see any imminent problems out there. And if you have any other questions, feel free.
Commissioner Kelly.
How far is 115 from that intersection?
115 is back toward the west, I believe 3 miles.
3 miles?
Yes,
So
I believe it's 3.
It's natural for them to want to take the shorter route.
Absolutely. Yeah, if they went back to 115, it would be in the neighborhood of a 10-mile detour to go around.
What's is there a detour set up?
Our signed detour, it goes over to 115. Yes, because we only sign our detours to paved roads. And this section of 479th is 2 miles of gravel road.
Commissioner Benega.
Jason, when we discussed this earlier, I think the Sheriff's Department had some concerns about even the speed limit being 45.
Yep.
Have you had any contact with them or the township on why those signs haven't been put up?
Not recently. The township, I just had a little misunderstanding originally that we were going to supply them the signs, which is incorrect. Once again, it's their jurisdiction of a roadway, so we directed them on where they could purchase signs at, but that it was their responsibility. And I was under the assumption they were going to put them up, but as of last Thursday, they hadn't put them up yet. Certainly can touch base with them again. We've not talked to the Sheriff's Department. We haven't received any complaints from Aros or anything of the sort out there of excessive speed or anything of the such. I haven't really received any comment, I guess, from Aros on the roadway that they're displeased with what's going on with it. So.
Okay.
Commissioner Barth.
Jason, it's not exactly to do with this, but I heard from a citizen that a couple of the bridges that have been replaced up there had kind of clunky carryovers from where you're approaching the bridge and hitting the bridge, and like a 6-inch gap or something like this. Is that taken care of now?
It's not taken care of yet. I know these would be the two structures to the north of the two that we're doing right now. After the frost came out, that the bumps there definitely came to fruition some more. Our highway department is aware of it, and we've talked to our crews about it. They're in the process of hurry up and get some things done. One with a Wall Lake parking lot, and then 2 with some patches we need to do prior to the chip seal, which is going to happen sooner than later. I found out last week. So after those get done, we plan on getting over there to get those done, because I know we've received more than a couple complaints about it, because the one direction, I believe it's southbound, on the furthest north bridge is a pretty healthy bump. And we have put up bump signs for that and are aware of the problem, and since the asphalt plants have opened, we're in very busy mode right now trying to get things done, and that is on the schedule.
Any other questions for Jason? This is just a briefing.
Correct.
Okay, guess I'll move on. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Item number 15 is to consider motion to authorize the purchase of weed control chemicals in the amount of $13,050.40 for the Minnehaha County Weed Control Department from contract number 16579 and contract number 16576. They're competitively bid and awarded by the state of South Dakota. We have Ralph Hammer to speak to this.
Ralph Hammer, County Weed Pest Supervisor. This is the normal weed chemical we use for weed control in the right-of-way. We've used it for years now. Included in that is a 50/50 grant from the state that actually is signed for $6,300 to help pay for it. So,
Any questions for Ralph regarding weed control? Commissioner Barth.
Ralph, I know we asked you this in the past, but is there any concern about residual effects of the chemicals that we use, people's gardens, the cattle grazing in the ditch, or taking hay from the ditch?
almost every chemical used will have some residual effect if you're going to control the weeds that we need to control. I'm using the chemicals that have the least amount of residual effect that I can.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Are you looking for approval?
Move for approval.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the weed control chemicals. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 16 is to consider an appeal of a decision by the Minnehaha County Planning Commission to approve conditional use permit number 14-18 to allow construction of a 42-foot by 66-foot detached accessory structure on property legally described as Tract 43 and Tract 43A, West Acres, Section 17, T101N, R50W, and Scott Anderson will address this.
Thank you. Scott Anderson, County Planning Department. As the auditor indicated, this is an appeal of a conditional use permit, 14-18, which was approved at the April 28th Planning Commission with 8 conditions. Dennis and Loretta Vandenbrink and Alvin and Elizabeth Folk have appealed the County Planning Commission's decision to approve the construction of a 42 by 66-foot detached garage. The location of that property is at 46710 Chestnut Street, which is in West Acres. West Acres, as you know, is about 3 miles west of Sioux Falls on Highway 42. The applicant wanted to construct this larger building, which equates to 2,772 square feet. Our zoning ordinance requires that any structures located in a subdivision of more than 4 lots is limited to 1,200 square feet unless they get a conditional use permit. The applicant sought the conditional use permit. We had a hearing at the Planning Commission. No one spoke in opposition of the conditional use permit. And as you read in their protest letters, they didn't understand that they could get up and appeal this. So they provided a written appeal, and the appeal is today. I have some pictures that I'd be glad to show you. This is the general overview of the property. Highway 42 would be this down here at the bottom. This is basically Highway 42. This is the subject property. You can see this is a map that we provided to the Planning Commission that shows that there were other large buildings out there. This property to the north had a total of about 4,000 square feet of detached accessory buildings. This property on Buckeye and 467th had a total of 3,360 square feet, And furthermore, it is of note that these people here obtained a conditional use permit for a larger building equaling or for the 3,600 square feet last year. So it was a very recent conditional use permit, and constructed the building. So this is the applicant's lot. You can see the conditional use permit sign, if you look closely, right here, stuck on this tree. This is an empty lot. The applicant's house is off to the right. This is the larger building that was constructed last year, which a conditional use permit was obtained. This is another large building that's in the property. This is basically the applicant's the construction site, or the location where the garage will sit. And those are some other large buildings that are in the vicinity. So I provided you the appeal letter and the minutes from the Planning Commission. I'd be glad to answer any questions. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to approve this conditional use permit with 8 conditions.
Any questions for Scott? Commissioner Barth?
Scott, there on the applicant's property, it shows in effect 2 lots. What's there's...
if you look, I'm unsure why, but when this subdivision was created, there was sort of a row of lots. If you see along here, there was a whole row of lots that have an additional lot platted on one side of them. I'm not sure if that was intended to be like a larger boulevard or something, and they did away with it, but it's for this subdivision in that location, it's not unusual to see that.
Okay. Any other questions for Scott? Okay. This is a public hearing, so this would be the time for the proponent to talk, the person who is in favor, if you'd like to speak in favor of your building. This is an opportunity for you to address us. If you'd give us your name and your address.
Thank you. My name is Ryan Meyer. I live at 46710 Chestnut Street, and I'm trying to get this building approved, mostly because I have a camper, boat, an extra vehicle, several trailers, and I just like to have this stuff inside rather than cluttering up the lot and looking like a mess. So there's also another small storage shed that I plan on taking down. The house is old, and the storage shed is old, and I'm just trying to clean things up and make things look better.
Any questions for Mr. Myers? Okay. We'll give you an opportunity to come back if you would like. Anybody from the opponents, the people against it, that would like to speak? If you just identify yourself and your address, please.
Sure. My name is Loretta Vandenbrink, and I live at 26466 Holland Avenue in West Acres. I do have some handouts that I'd like to give to you. Just to answer Commissioner Barr's question about the additional tracks on some of those, it's my understanding with those that that street called Bluegrass was originally further to the south, and I think that originally when the developer, or when the person started building the homes in that track, they went back to the developer and said that the road was in the wrong place, and he had to move it further to the north, and I think that's how come there's those additional tracks that are there. So I'm here this morning to say that I've been a resident of West Acres for 36 years, and I oppose this permit because I believe that it's in violation of the covenants. Since the hearing, I've done some work here to try to make this presentation a little bit easier. And you'll find in the handouts, there is, I kind of pieced together a little map that's color-coded that shows the individual plats that were there. The section in blue was put together in 73, in red it was in 76, and so forth. Green was 76, and yellow was 77, and purple was 78. But it was, these plats were made kind of independently, and then a covenant assigned to each plat. And because they were done that way, if you look at the covenants, sometimes they're kind of hard to follow. And some of the copies there, I did give copies of the actual plat and the covenants. But I went through the covenants, and I went through each restriction, and that's what this page is. And for instance, it just shows that the restriction number 1, the wording in that is the same for all 4 plats, the color-coded plats. Where in restriction number 2, you'll see in the blue and the red, they had the discrepancies I put in red, so you can see, for example, in blue and red, restriction number 2 said it, and further shall, that certain areas that should not be any closer to 70 feet from Highway 16, which that portion wasn't needed in some of the other plats because they're already set back that far to the north. In the restriction number 3, the blue plat talked about where you could have more than one dwelling on a track, tracks 28 through 35. Restriction number 3 in the red was for tracks 36 through 43. But when they put that, they still listed the same track numbers from the blue section, so there was just a few things there that didn't match up sometimes. I think it's important to note that restriction number 3 is not included on the green and the yellow sections of the covenant. And I want to just point out on here that if you look at these, you can see in the blue sections that the majority of the tracks, it would be to the west, are all 1 acre tracks, where some of them within the horseshoe are possibly less than an acre. Same thing in the green. There's portions of the green that are smaller. They're probably not a full 1 acre. In West Acres development, the 1 acre tracks, everyone out there is on rural water, and everyone has a septic tank. And according to the county guidelines, there's a 1/2 acre minimum requirement for a septic tank. The covenants do allow that a tract can be divided into 2 parcels, and so the red lines through certain tracts indicate that that tract has been divided into 2 parcels. So with that, I'd like to point out that the reason I think that the conditional use permit 1418 for that accessory building is violation of the first and the third restrictions of the covenant. Because the first restriction states that no covenant, or excuse me, no tract shall be used except for residential purposes only. And the third restriction says that there shall not be permitted more than 1 dwelling on each tract except when permitted by applicable zoning regulations. Then 2 dwellings should be permitted on the tract. Okay? So once a tract is divided into 2 parcels, according to the covenants, each parcel could only have a residential dwelling on there, not an accessory building. And if you look, there's been violations in the past. One thing I like to point out too is that as far as the conditional use permits, they're only sent out for people within 500 feet of where that is going to be. That's how come we received this notification of that. So on some of the other buildings that went up out there, there was no notices sent out, at least I never got one, that those buildings were going to be constructed. And so if you don't have any knowledge of those things that are happening, you know, they're just all of a sudden there. If you look into the blue section, tract 33, for example, that has been divided into 2 parcels. The south parcel has the residential dwelling on it. The north parcel has the accessory building. Same thing in the red section, tract number 39. The south half of that has a house on it, where the north tract on that has the accessory building. And those are right along the county road right here. And that is interesting in tract 39 because actually the south tract and the north tract have different mailing addresses to them. One is a residential, the other was is an accessory building. The same thing is true in the green section. Tracts 56 and 57 have been divided into 2 parcels. The south parcel has the house, The north parcel has the accessory buildings. Now, my concern to some of this is that because they're set up this way, a landowner can come out there and put up a huge storage building on the second parcel. He could sell his house, he could sell that property and maintain his accessory building for storage and not even live in West Acres. So I feel that, number one, some of these need to be redone so that when there is the house and the dwelling place, that be just one parcel, one tract, that if one sells, the other one sells. Because I just see that as an advantage point. I see in town there's a lot of people that do have the big campers, they have the boats, they have those things. And a lot of times what they're looking for is storage places. And if they, if they would understand that they can come out here, purchase a parcel, put a storage building on it, and not even have to live out there, I don't know. I think that really jeopardizes the integrity of our housing development. My husband and I purchased our lot in 1978 directly from the developer. Their names were John and Julia Cooley. And John's definition for a newly constructed, his definition for that was stick-built. And number 4 of the restrictions found in the covenants says that no mobile home, trailer, or park should be permitted on any tract, and all dwellings and other buildings placed on said tracts shall be new construction. So I think with that, you could perhaps consider new construction for residential purposes exclusively would imply that pool buildings were not intended for the development and that all accessory buildings should be stick-built. I also like to point out that the covenants say that there's not to be any existing buildings brought into the area, and several years ago, though, there was a violation of that took place on Tract 37. I think that, I know that also in the covenants, the size of the dwelling is also addressed in the covenants. The second restriction states that no dwelling shall be permitted on any tract less than 1,000 square feet of floor space, exclusive to garages, porches, outdoor buildings, and basements. And back in the 1970s, if you were to build a residential area, 1,000 square feet was probably considered to be a nice size home. And I do understand that by today's values, or houses that are built, that 1,000 square feet is really not that large of a home anymore. But if you take an accessory building, and then especially a pole building that's in excess of the county regulations of 1,200 square feet, and it's 2 to 3 size larger than most of the homes in that area, I think that also violates the integrity of our housing addition. So in closing, I included this little map of the joint jurisdictional boundaries between Minnehaha County and the City of Sioux Falls, and West Acres is just within yards of where that boundary line is on Highway 42. And I understand some of the problems that the county and the city planners face concerning urban residential developments, but I believe that by upholding the covenant regulations for West Acres, the jurisdictional control from the county to the city would be less painful for all. And so I'm asking your help by voting no to the issuing of the conditional use permit 1418, and that greater care be given before issuing any such permits in the West Acres residential development. Thank you.
Any questions for Loretta? Commissioner Barth.
Ms. Van der Brink, did you see the list of conditions that were put on this property when it went through? Did you see the 8 items that were put
These,
on it? The 8 conditions?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, Madam Chair, I guess I'd ask the state's attorney if what the status of covenants are for the county.
In my view, covenants are a private contractual matter by the landowners that can be enforced in court. That doesn't impair the county's action in determining zoning and land use, the owners in an area can impair uses through those private contractual relationships, but that isn't really the role of the county to enforce that as it would an ordinance. Does that make sense?
Any other questions for Mrs. Van de Brink? Commissioner Benega?
Mrs. Van de Brink, where do you live in relationship to the applicant's facility?
I live on track. Oh, sure. Our property is right here. Oh, there you go. Now you know why I did the custom.
Nicely
I'm not a techie person. Is that where you live? Yes. And we do have a accessory building that sits behind our house. It is a stick-built building. It has got siding on it that matches the house. It's got the exact shingles on it that the house has. Another thing I'd like to point out is that because it sits behind the house, if you were to drive down Holland Avenue, you really can't see it from Holland Avenue until you just get north of the house. You cannot, there's a point on Snowberry, which is to the north, that you can see it, and there's a part on Bruni Avenue to the east that you can see it. But it is, like I said, it is a stick-built structure. It's pretty comparable in size to our house. It's 1,800 square feet, which I believe was the standard set by the county at the time it was built in 1999. Our house without the garage is 1,500 square feet. And so, like I said, most of the homes out in that west area, West Acres development, there's probably not, I'd say most of the homes out there are within that 1,000 to probably 1,500 or 1,800 square feet in size.
A couple more questions. Are any of the other surrounding neighbors here to oppose this permit?
I have Alvin and Liz Folken are here this morning also.
Okay.
And they live on track 70, which is just right behind us. I'm going to try the mouse again. So.
Yeah, I see track 70.
See track 70?
Yep. I guess the other question, just from my own personal information, is would you rather have his recreational vehicle sitting outside or inside?
I'd like to say I really have not personally met Ryan. I know that one of my neighbors out there, Rob Hartman, has talked with him and said to that Ryan's really a nice guy, and I don't doubt that. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to our neighborhood. And really would. Last year we talked about having a neighborhood cookout and stuff. This spring so far we've had. There was a couple that lives right across the street from us that recently lost their infant son, and so there's just been some things going on that kind of prevent us from doing the things that we'd like to do out there. And yes, I would not. I appreciate the fact that he is being considerate of the neighborhood and he doesn't want his stuff all over the place. However, for a building that size, I also have a camper. It sits in our backyard, behind, in front of our shed, kind of out of sight. But I also feel that if it's, and ours is outside, it's an older camper, it doesn't bother us to have it outside. My feeling on that is that there are facilities in town that you can rent at a very reasonable price. My son rents a facility in T, so if it's to store larger items such as a camper, that perhaps there's a better alternative. I am concerned about having these large buildings go up in our area. A lot of the concerns come too in the city. At one time, I was working on our residential roads, and I went and visited with, I think it was Jeff Schmidt from the city, and he was telling me that the residential areas, he said eventually they all do get annexed into the city. That's just a fact of life. And so I do have thoughts about, so what is the city going to do with these big sheds when they're out there, and how is that going to affect it? And how can we maintain, the integrity of this? I have great concerns about these 1-acre tracts being divided into 2 parcels, people putting up big buildings like this. And what happens when they move away? What happens with that? When all we are to them is just a storage facility, then, you know, I'm just not looking for that. And I appreciate, I know Ryan has said his plans are to stay in West Acres. He's not planning to do that. I'm sure that I'd be willing to bet he wasn't even aware of this coming into it, that because of the way his track is set up, he'd have the opportunity to do that. I bet money on it he doesn't know that, do you, Ryan? No, he doesn't know those things. I'd prefer it wasn't public knowledge at this point. But, so no, I do appreciate that he is looking out also for the integrity of it. But I think at some point you kind of have to draw a line in the sand and say, you know, what is going to be best for the development as a whole. And I really thought that, you know, the reason for the covenants was to help maintain some of the integrity that the developer was initially trying to put into that area.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mrs. Van Brink? Mr. Meyer, you would have an opportunity to come back and, if you have any comments about anything she said. Yeah, okay. Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in opposition of it first? Sorry. Identify yourself and where you live.
I'm Alvin Foken. I live at 6465 Bruni Avenue. I also farm, and I realize that, you know, people need a storage facility for things, but it needs to be a certain size. We're beginning to look more like farmsteads out there with big pole buildings going up. And I just don't feel that housing development should be a place for that size of building, you know. I mean, I'm not against Ryan putting up a small 1,300 square foot building as long as it doesn't have 15-foot sidewalls on it. And it's right along Holland Avenue where everybody's going to see it, and it's just going to look like a farmstead then. So I guess that's my only concern as to why we need to have big pole buildings that look like, you know, farmsteads out there. I mean, I've got big machine sheds to put my equipment in, but I think that should be on a farm, not in a residential area. That's my only concerns, I guess. Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. Fulkin, what about the other buildings that are already pretty large in that area? You know, there are two that are shown on the map
put
up
up
there.
They were put up before. I mean, like Loretta says, they were put up, you know, a few years back. We was never notified when they were going up or anything because we wasn't apparently in that 500-foot
Sure.
area. So, I mean, and they're not, you know, that one along 467, that has got probably 14 or 15-foot sidewalls, but the others are probably 10 or 12-foot sidewalls.
Any other questions? Is there anybody else against that wants to speak? Okay, and we'll go back to Ryan.
Thank you. My intention is certainly not to sell the properties off separate. My intention is to use it as a storage facility. One other thing that didn't really get said, but trying to find this pointer here. There's a shed right here at the corner here. There's another one at the corner here. Another one was put up on this lot. There's another one down here. There's another one right here, one on the corner here and one on the corner over here that are all constructed as a pole-type barn. My intention is to make this building fit in the best I can. I'm going to use Wayne's Code. You know, use neutral colors. Not going to make it bright red and pink. It's going to fit in with the rest of the neighborhood, and there's a bunch of trees back there I'm having to take down. They were going to come down regardless. They're old trees and they're almost dead. So matter of fact, a couple of them were dead. And of course, my intention is to plant new trees. I like nature, and I really do want to get this. I want it to fit in. I don't want it to stand out like a sore thumb, and I'm afraid that you know, if I don't put something up, it'll look like a mess, and that's certainly not my intention. As far as getting a storage unit outside or somewhere else, I guess that seems a little drastic when I have the space to put up a storage unit or a storage accessory building on my property and use it right there. So, like I said, I have a camper, I have a boat, and actually I have 4 trailers that, and I intermix these, I use these trailers maybe not daily, but I do use them quite often depending on the purpose. It depends on which trailer I will use. So it's not something I can stick in a storage unit, travel to T to get my camper or to get my boat or to get a trailer. Also, as my neighbor to the north pointed out there, they have a storage shed as well, and I can see it from my lot, and as they would be able to see mine. And they do have their camper parked in front of it. Now, 1,800 square feet, I'm actually going a little bit bigger than that, but I don't think that should be a hindrance on them or stop the approval of what I'm trying to do.
Any more questions for Mr. Myers? Commissioner Barth?
How high are your sidewalls going to be?
It's going to be 15 foot. The camper height is about 13.2, and anyway, to get it, I'll have to put a low overhead clearance door in there, but about 15 foot is, I need about a 13.6, 14-foot door,
Right.
and I can do a 14-foot door and put a low clearance door in to make a 15-foot sidewall work, and that's about the most I can do, or about the least I can do, and that's what I'm trying to keep as low as I can. I don't want to go any higher than I have to.
Sure.
Commissioner Kelly?
A couple questions. One, there were some pictures, Scott, after these. What's an example of a 2,700 foot building, plus or minus?
This one's actually 3,300.
With the garage and the building. Okay.
I have a picture of what I plan on putting up. It'll
pretty well answers my question. And then the other question is, are these trailers used for any commercial use?
No, just I use grass. I have 2 wood burners, so I haul wood with them.
Okay.
I have a little Kubota tractor. I haul with that. Just little stuff that I like to use them for.
Any other questions for Mr. Meyer? All right, Commission, your decision.
Well, I think, I think his attempt is to clean up the area. There's an awful lot of, when you look at that map, there's a lot of sheds out there, buildings out there. And I would guess, one of the reasons people move out there is so they can have this stuff and they can store it. I'm going to move for approval with the condition of the Planning Commission with the conditions.
I'll second that. I have a question. Do we need to list the conditions or just assume them from that motion?
I believe they can be referenced from the prior minutes. That's fine.
There are 8 of them.
But for purposes of the audience, perhaps they'd like to hear those.
That's fine, if you want
Throw
to.
them up on the screen, maybe?
I'll just read them.
We have a motion and a second to approve to uphold the Planning Commission's decision with the 8 conditions that were approved of the planning conditions. And Scott, if you would just read them then.
Sure. There are 8. Number 1, that the total accessory building square footage shall not exceed 2,772 square feet. Number 2, that the building shall only be used for the petitioner's personal residential use. No commercial or business use or storage shall be allowed. Number 3, that the accessory building shall not exceed 1 story in height. Number 4, that a building inspection is required to determine that the building does not exceed 2,772 square feet measured from the outside perimeters. Number 5, a building permit is required. Number 6, that all outdoor lighting shall be of a full cutoff and fully shielded design to prevent direct spillage of light beyond the property boundaries. Number 7, that the Planning and Zoning Department reserves the right to enter and inspect the accessory building at any time after proper notice to the owner to ensure that the property is in compliance with the conditional use permit conditions and the Minnehaha County zoning ordinance And number 8, that prior to applying for a building permit, the applicant shall obtain an approach permit from Wayne Township for any new approach onto Bluegrass Street or Holland Avenue.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to approve.
One comment. We're looking at the zoning issues. We're looking at what's able to be built under the county. If you have issues, if the opponents have issues with the covenants, then they should probably approach it from that, but that is not the county issue. The county issue is simply, does this meet our zoning requirements? So if I understand you're drawing a line in the sand, and you're concerned for the overall thing, but that's a covenant issue, that's a civil issue, and the courts are evidently where you have to go, and unfortunately you have to hire a lawyer, but that's the way it goes.
So I have a motion and a second with the 8 conditions. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. So conditional use permit has been upheld.
Item number 17 is to consider an appeal of a decision by the Minnehaha County Planning Commission to approve conditional use permit number 14-04 to allow a bulk fuel storage facility on property legally described at Lot 1, Brower 2nd Edition. Scott Anderson will address this.
Yes, once again, Scott Anderson from the County Planning Department. Today, you have an appeal of the conditional use permit 14-04 to allow a bulk fuel storage facility to be constructed in Lot 1 of Block 2 Brower subdivision, which is at the Hartford interchange of Hartford and Interstate 90. The applicant is Hartford's Farmers Elevator, and in summary, the applicant has requested a conditional use permit at this site to allow some bulk storage of fuel. This was the site plan that was provided by the applicant, and I know this is sort of an architectural rendering or a sketch, but the street, I believe, is over here to the north, up here? Okay, and then this is basically like a loading facility or a loading dock, is that correct? That's right here. Yeah. And then you'll be able to go around the building, correct? Like that. So I do have some pictures. This was approved by the Planning Commission at their April 28th meeting. I've included the minutes for your review, and I will go over the slides for you. This is the facility, partly constructed. The applicant did place the tanks before obtaining a conditional use permit and paid the associated penalty, so they did pay a double fee for their application. This shows the property looking from the facility looking to the east, and this is the property looking towards the west, towards the county highway and basically the on-ramp onto Interstate 90, but this is looking directly west. Here's the intersection of the county highway and on Jeffrey Street, the only access into this development. And this is from that same spot looking back towards where the applicant's facility would be, and it would be approximately over in here. And once again, this is looking at the other direction of the facility. And the reason that you see a lot of snow was this was originally heard before the Planning Commission in January. They continued it for 3 months in order to allow the applicant and the neighbors some time to discuss the road. The road into the subdivision has been of concern to many people there, and that's why the pictures are from January. But this is what it looks like basically today. And this is the neighbor's property to the west, or sorry, east. So I'll go back to the aerial photograph, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Scott? Commissioner Kelly.
Scott, don't we have a requirement that the road going to our hard service county road be paved? I'm thinking back to the thing we had with the Bones Farm down south.
And I'll give you a little bit of history. That is correct, Commissioner Kelly. The subdivision requirements today require that when you do a subdivision, any kind of platting, if the road is coming off a paved road, it's required to be paved. The issue that we're running into is that there are two editions. There's a Brower's first edition and there's a Brower's second edition. The first edition is basically this portion, which was up here. This is the first edition. That was platted and developed prior to our implementation of the subdivision regulations. So they were able to construct the roads. There was no minimum standard that they had to meet, and there was not that requirement that the road be paved. This portion was developed in, I think, 2007, 2006, 2007, in that time period. It's Brower's second edition, and it was required to be paved because it's zoned light industrial, and that was one of the requirements for it is one of the requirements that property that's zoned industrial, and once it's platted, then those roads needed to be paved. So we have sort of a split subdivision. Half of it's paved, half of it's not. The problem is that the only access road, or not the problem, excuse me, the issue is that the only access road into the subdivision that everyone has to go through is right in here to get to their properties is not paved, it's gravelled. So,
Commissioner Kelly.
We have an issue though because of what happens when they go onto the county highway, I would guess. Is that?
Well, the issue is, as I see it, as I indicated, everyone in this subdivision, with the exception of this property and this property, but everyone in this subdivision has to go over this portion of the road. And I have been here going on 10 years, and it is a perennial problem that in the spring, the frost comes out of that road and it's very soft. I was out there 3 weeks ago, and once again, you could tell there are many, many soft spots. And what happens is people start sort of avoiding the soft spots. They just sort of move over, they go around them, and it doesn't really benefit that road any. And the soft spots, they firm back up in the summer. You know, people driving over them, they compact back. But it's a constant problem. Now this year we had sort of a dry spring, but I have been out there before where there are ruts that are 2 feet deep in those soft spots, and that occurs typically when we have a very wet spring immediately following the frost coming up out of the ground.
Commissioner Kelly.
One more follow-up. In order, the folks in Brower 1 could form a road district. Is that correct?
It's my understanding that there is a road district
in Brower 1.
Brower
Yes.
1 and 2.
Yep.
They're separate, though.
Then what's to prevent Brower 1 from? I mean, if the majority of the property owners want to pave that, can they do that?
They certainly could pave that if that was their desire. They would have to levy the appropriate amount of taxes to do the work, or I suppose they could utilize any bonding that is available through. A road district is an entity of government. They could do whatever methods are legally available to them to raise money.
This road district has been in place since 2007, so there's been plenty of time to get this thing going and have enough money to pay for that road to be fixed.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
I think
Barth.
that they had a road association in Brower 1, which is different than a road district, and then a road district in number 2. And I guess additionally, talking about going around the soft spots on the road, they drive across people's yards and stuff.
In 2007, they came to the county commission and got a road district
For Brower 1?
for Brower 1. They checked that out yesterday. Are there any other questions for Scott? Commissioner?
Well, I have a
Manica?
legal question. If it's a road district, what authority do we have?
We don't have any authority. They're a separate governmental entity that levies taxes, for a better way of put it, to maintain the roads. Once it's formed, they have to follow certain rules and regulations in the statute about how they go about their business, but they're ultimately responsible for that road, and the county or the township is not. What you're considering today is the land use. However, it is inside this area where the only access to the property is through a road district road.
So is that a legitimate question of us, is if it meets all the qualifications except the problem getting to it, is that one of the criteria we can use to determine?
Well, let me ask staff, was that considered in your report to the Planning and Zoning Commission?
My recommendation was to deny the request because I felt that the road was in such a shape that it may be further impaired by heavy truck traffic. This is a bulk fuel storage facility, so you can assume that it's going to be a heavy truck, not like a passenger vehicle or a service vehicle, but it's going to be a heavier weight vehicle driving up and down that road. You can ask the applicant approximately how many trips a day they would anticipate, but my evaluation was and my past experience from the many years I've taken many calls, always in the spring, that people are unhappy with the road, the condition of the road. And so I recommended denial because I felt that the road, that the additional development that's occurring on that road needed to be addressed. And I think that there needs to be a solution to that road, the condition of the road.
I have a question for Kirsten.
Sure.
We can't force them to fix that road, so by them not fixing the road, they are shutting down their development. If we say we're not going to approve anybody else to go in there, they basically shut that development down because the road's not fixed.
We cannot force them to do anything with the road district. However, aggrieved landowners within that road district can bring a court action, basically, to either dissolve it, make them do their duties, for lack of a better way of putting it. They do have those options, but those lie with the landowners and the interested parties within that area, not with the county. And if I may,
Yep.
I believe there is some litigation still ongoing over this road district formation and the duties that are out there. Is that correct?
It's my understanding as well.
Yeah.
Commissioner Barth?
I just would make the comment that on the one hand it's planning and the other hand it's zoning. And, planning means having a road. Zoning means using the property for what you want to use it for. And I can remember many instances where we've had to consider roads, for example, haul roads from gravel pits, that we've had them pave them because of the concern about dust, etc. So roads are commonly an issue that we contend with on planning and zoning issues. And the zoning is great. The planning is bad at this point for this subdivision. I think if they were to fix these roads, the value of their property would be enhanced immensely.
Ken has a comment.
Yeah, question.
I'm going to ask that, at this stage of your deliberation, that in fairness, you should hear from the
Yeah,
applicant
we will.
and what their proposal is, and then any detractors. And then this kind of discussion that you're having now should probably take place after that.
Okay. Listen to the proponent, the person in favor.
Monty Schrader, General Manager of the Hartford Farmers Elevator. Yes, there's ongoing litigation, and from my understanding on the road district out there, there was some work done. Bills were handed out, they were not paid for, and that's why no other work has been done, because if nobody's going to pay for it, they're not going to do it. As far as what I want, I have 215 members of a co-op, of which 193 of them are fuel customers of ours. They want that. For the last 10 years, we've paid out $1.6 million to our patrons in patronage and retired equity, so we're helping the community. Our patrons want this, we want this. We think it's good for us, it's good for Hartford. We just think this would be the best spot for it. We could put it in town. We don't want it in town. They have constructed the exact same thing right behind the Coffee Cup in Hartford within 600 feet of an apartment building. We just thought this would be better for us as stewards of Hartford not to put it inside the city of Hartford, so we picked Brower Addition not knowing what was all going on out in Brower Addition. It's a light industrial. We thought this was the perfect spot for it. Obviously, we've had some conflict with this because of the road. I do know the road is in dire shape. If you figure on what we were planning on selling for fuel, there would be, on average, one semi every 4 days on that coming in, and then our fuel truck, our little fuel truck going out. We have a little single axle fuel truck that hauls 2,000 gallons. So that going out, you know, depending on the day, maybe 2-3 times a day at most. So, any questions?
Any questions? Which road district are you on?
I'm not on any road district, but we would be in the second
You're in the
edition.
second edition.
I have talked to people on the road district out there. I'd be more than willing to sit on a road district if somebody asked me, but nobody's asked. I mean, if there's got to be a common resolution for this, and I mean, I live in Hartford Heights, which is a subdivision just like West Acres. Hartford Township maintains it. Hartford Township does not have a lot of money. I had a graduation this weekend. I went out and dug my own road for way more than I own just to fill in the washboards on my own because I wanted people coming to my son's graduation to not hit all the washboards. I know Hartford Township can't come out and blade it just for me, but I mean, and some people out there, I drive up and down that once a week, twice a week. They have culverts. Yep, they're crushed in. They push snow, skid loaders hit them, whatever. They're crushed closed. Well, isn't that the property owners to go back and open that culvert up and take care of their property? That's what I have to do on my property where I live, and I would do the same there. But I think, I mean, some of this stuff can be taken care of by property owners themselves, not coming in front of you commissioners to make a decision for them. That's all I have.
Any questions for Monty?
Just a comment. I don't think anything that we've been talking about is directed at your business. I mean, obviously it's affecting it, but it's not what you're building or how it looks or anything else. It's I guess all about the developer and his refusal to work on, or at least apparent refusal to work on the other issue. So just it's not against you guys.
No, and I know there's 2 ongoing lawsuits as far as with the road district, and I think with people, with landowners in the property, and I think with the road district and the township, I believe. I don't know for sure, but that's what I have been informed of anyway, so.
Any other questions for Monty?
Let me ask Monty one more
Okay.
question.
Commissioner Barth.
Monty, your customers are going to be farmers and the West Central School District, stuff like that, right?
Right.
And so you need to get going in order for them to do their work, right?
Right, and another thing that has come to my my knowledge, since the Coffee Cup has taken over what used to be Tammany Oil, there is no longer a pump for dyed diesel fuel for farmers. So, I mean, that puts an extra burden on us for that reason, because construction companies can no longer go to and get their fuel from a pump at a gas station.
Right.
So we are now required to take on that load also.
Thank you.
Now it's time for the opponents to speak. Who's against this development? If you'd identify yourself and your address, please.
Bob Schulte. I own the property where the storage units are right in here.
Okay.
We bought that property in 1996. At that time, we were not required to be a member of the road district. Our purchase agreement states that the county has authority to tax that guy. Assessment levied against the property or will be levied against the property for improvements completed but not yet entered on the books of the local assessing authority will be paid by the seller. That is who has to pay for this road. He states in here that he will pay for it. And the county has authority to assess that guy for the road. The road is in almost impassable condition. If we get a 2 or 3 inch rain, part of that road's going to be flooded. And it's going to be extremely soft. As of this spring, that road is widened out 5 feet on each side. So, like you said, vehicles are driving on our property to get away from those ruts. Granted, some of the drainage was taken out when they did this work last time. Some of the drainage wasn't ever put in correctly. So water sets in those ditches after a rain for many months. That's why the road is so soft. That is the developer's responsibility from the very beginning. I call that road part of the infrastructure. The infrastructure cannot handle any more development out in that area. Just like if somebody wanted to go out and start a new development, you would require them to have a road suitable for the use there. This road is not suitable for 80 or 90,000 pound trucks to go down, or however many pounds a single axle truck can haul out. This is going to be very devastating to that road and to the current customers there. Like Commissioner Kelly was saying, it's not against the project itself. It's against the infrastructure of that development that is not suitable to handle that kind of traffic. And like I said, if we get a heavy rain, part of that road's going to be flooded. Part of the road, the ditches are going to be full, and it's going to continue to deteriorate. Like I said, we were not required or notified that there was a road district when we purchased the property. This statement right here says that the seller will be responsible for that. And I wish the county would assess the seller of this property to develop the road, which, according to this here contract, you have the authority to do that. So I think it's part of the county or the township's responsibility to get this road done. It also states in here that the seller will maintain snow removal on the property until it is turned over to the township. And he doesn't do that either. So the seller is not being responsible for his part of this contract, even though it was made in 1996. Some people did not pay for the assessment of the road district. Some people say the road district was not legal, wasn't set up right, wasn't a recognized entity. We paid our share of the road development, which has just money down the drain because it wasn't engineered or planned out to improve the road. It was just to pacify some of the people. So the road district, I don't know where it's at right now, if it's still in existence or it's dissolved. Road association, I don't know. But the seller failed to start that when he just started the development area. I've been a member of other road districts that the seller, the developer, is responsible for everyone that buys a lot there to pay. When they buy the lot, every 6 months you have to pay so much money, and the roads are developed there. This was a very haphazard, very shoddy development to begin with. And he states in here that he will
is allowed to be assessed for this work. He has plenty of other property back there for the county to assess against to get him to pay. I have no idea what it's going to cost to develop this road, but it's the county's responsibility to get it done and to assess this property owner.
Kirsten?
We have no taxing authority that isn't given by statute. Somebody can't give through contract a taxing authority to the county that they don't have. Now, whether he agreed to that in the contract is one thing. You do have a method of doing that sort of thing through the road district chapter, through the board of trustees of the road district, asking them to assess under their governmental powers. We don't have governmental powers that others give us by a private contract between land sellers. That's my legal opinion anyway.
You have questions for Mr. Schulte? Schulte? Schulte?
Schulte, yes.
Schulte, excuse me. Ken, did you want to speak to the road district just a little bit? No, I think you've done it. No, well, I had a lot of questions for you yesterday, so I'm just wondering if you would just kind of reiterate.
No, I'm not speaking to that directly, and there has been a lot of questions concerning that issue. You know, and my understanding, you know, I'll just speak briefly on it. My understanding is that, yes, the road district was formed, and that it can be an active district. However, since the formation of that district, absolutely nothing has been done relative to determining costs of doing that, submitting the required documentation in order to do the proper assessments, you know, for a road district that would appear on tax bills and everything else that money's distributed. None of that's been done. And so it's just sitting there. And whether or not it needs new officers or something else to kickstart it is another issue, but I'm sure that's all clouded and tied up with the current lawsuits that are going on. And those will probably have to be resolved and some direction given before those can go on. The only reason that I stood up, if you're asking for opponents, there was a gentleman that stopped by the office today, and he absolutely wanted to be here, but the time didn't permit it. And he just wanted me to voice his name and again, his name is Larry Coulterman. He's a contractor that has the Heartland building out there, he said. He's a property owner, and he just simply said, I think we need to have the road issues taken care of before any additional development goes on out there. And he asked me specifically to relay his concerns and comments on that issue to you.
Commissioner.
Ken, don't go away. You're not getting off that easy. Some clarification on the road district. Everybody within the road district is technically a member. Is that not right? Or,
well,
I mean, I understand there's a board that governs the road district, but everybody is a part of electing that board.
Now, you know, I'm not prepared to answer that. I'm just not, because one of the issues is, and I don't know all of that yet, and I haven't delved that deeply in what the auditor's office is. When the district was originally formed, you know, did this second edition exist at that time? I don't know that, and I don't know if they were incorporated at the time of development. All I know is that, yes, a district was created at a certain time, and nothing has happened since that time.
But then I would ask Kirsten, what recourse do the people within the district, not District 2, but the number 1, what recourse do they have to getting something done?
Well, without going into specific legal advice, because I'm not their attorney, and this really is a matter for them to litigate if they're not doing their duties under the road district. But generally, there are a few solutions. Board of Trustees should be elected in accordance with its Chapter 31-12A. The Board of Trustees should be properly elected. They should have proper meetings according to the regulations under that chapter. Their first remedy is to get different Board of Trustee members that maybe will take action. The second is their specific duties under this chapter as to maintenance of the roads under that jurisdiction in a defined area. And a certain number of those people can ask that those duties be performed, but that is not something that the county or the county commission or the township, for that matter, in my opinion, has any role in doing once that road district is properly formed.
And they are subject to open meeting law then?
Absolutely. They're another unit of government. Generally, I think a lot of the regulations that they have reflect a treating it as a municipality, but for limited purposes.
One other question, Chairman. Is the developer here?
Mr. Brower is not here.
And I don't know if there's any more
Yeah.
people who...
Is there anyone else opposed that wants to speak? You just try not to repeat what's already been said. Anything new?
I just,
And your name and address.
My name is Karen Liesinger, and we own the property adjacent to the subject property to the west, 46323 through 46327 Jeffrey Street. And I guess you've heard all of that stuff before. We're under the impression that the road district is not a legal entity, which you have just discussed. Also, the other thing is the zoning of the Brower 1. When it was zoned industrial, I guess we thought that would mean, and we also have the purchase agreement that says the seller was responsible for all maintenance, snow removal. But if it was zoned industrial, it should be able to handle industrial, but it doesn't. And so that's my question about the zoning is, when was it zoned industrial, and who zones it industrial, and was there anything at that point that was stated that should have been done?
Questions for Mrs. Liesinger? Scott, is Scott in here? I don't even see Scott there. Yes. Do you know when it was zoned?
Not right off the top of my head. We had this discussion at the Planning Commission back in January, and the owner of this property spoke at the meeting, and I think he indicated, let me look quick on my minutes. Might be in there. I think he said 78, but let me look quick if I can see that. No, it just says he was one of the original buildings in the area. It's in the minutes. It didn't give a date. I just remember him saying he was one of the original. It's Mike Volken, I think, who owns this building right here, said that he was one of the original. I mean, I could find that out, but you know, as I indicated, our subdivision regulations weren't adopted till like 1987, and this greatly precedes that. So it was zoned correctly, and it just was, the zoning preceded our subdivision regulations, which was one of the issues. And I think that everyone's recapped the greater issues that we're facing here, and that is what to do about the road district. And I think it was also said that, you know, we don't have any authority to move them along. They are a legal unit of government. So it's been difficult for me, you know, dealing with the land use, and then also on the other flip side of that is that the land use is appropriate, as we've all discussed. It is zoned light industrial, but we have an issue with the infrastructure, and we don't have any, you know, there's nothing for us to force them into this other than denying conditional use permits, the other option. And we implemented this when I was in Pennington County. You could, at a later date, to help push this all to get it moving, would be to like implement a building permit moratorium, where you just say nothing more is going to be built out there. Because some of what's happening is, you know, the people, if you have all of your buildings and your activities, it's all good. It's just anything that's new is going to be hindered. But eventually, if you're putting a building permit moratorium on there, that is maybe another tool to make everyone come to the table, because it indicates to sellers and people that are interested in the property that, you know, you can't do anything there until we get this resolved. But there's a number of options that I'd be glad to answer any other questions you have.
Any questions for Scott?
Madam Chairman?
Yep.
Being as there's another resource present in the room, I wonder if we could ask Nick Fosheim to speak.
Nick, do you have any comments about road district? Nick is with Economic Development.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nick Fosheim, Minnehaha County Economic Development Association. I think the one comment that I would make, and I agree with Ken, that we have a lot of questions that we still have to have answered. As I've talked to several of the county staff yesterday, and I think as we look into this a little bit more, there are two things that don't make sense. And I think I've heard it this morning too. You've heard road association and you've heard road district. And so I don't know if there are two entities out there that exist, and so that's what we have to research a little bit further. And my thought is that many people don't know that the district actually exists. So those would be my comments today.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
So, Nick, you know, Sioux Falls, for example, is getting $40 million to gain 9 acres of land downtown here. The governor spent $5 million to recruit out-of-state workers to come here. Can't we find money in one of our economic development funds to try to fix this up? Perhaps we could offer a TIF, for example, tax increment financing, to make the improvements and have it paid off at a steady but long-term pace. I mean, this area could be really a jewel if it was fixed up properly. And you know, how can we pull together both the warring neighbors here and our economic development stuff and our zoning and planning and commission and make this thing work?
So we agree, and I know that Scott's had meetings in the past with the landowners out there, and I think that one thing an opportunity we see is to pull everybody together. But before we do that, we want to make sure that meeting is focused on solutions to the problem, and that's what we're coming up with right now, is that list of solutions.
Right. Recriminations wouldn't be helpful at that point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Kelly? I will need to give the proponent one more opportunity to speak.
Gerald had his hand up.
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to point out that this property directly to the north, planning and zoning granted a permit last night to build on that one.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we did approve a mini storage facility there yesterday.
There's another.
Commissioner Kelly.
I'm going to make a motion to defer
We
this
have
like
one,
90 days.
we're not quite done yet. He has another proponent. There's a proponent wants to speak first.
All right.
Hi, I'm Mike Johnson. I live right next door, and I've been here, or lived there since 1969. So I've heard a lot about the road, and I think the elevator would be a good one to do some mediation, because we have two sides here that I don't know if they can agree that the sun is coming up, which direction the sun comes up in the morning, because it's just arguing. But I think the elevator, with our patrons and what we're going to do for the community, is going to be a good one to get this road district and all this stuff started. Because the way it is now, you can see nothing's going to happen. But you have to get some new blood in there to get something started.
Commissioner Benega.
Well, way back to my first question when we got this ball rolling, what responsibility does a road district have? And does the county have the ability to direct the entrance from the highway to that first distance before the road district begins, as I understand it? And the second part of my question is we're never going to get the road district issue solved, because if it's in court now, how long has it been in court? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. We haven't been made a party to this, which is why I'm not sure where
I understand.
this is.
2 years?
It's been there for 2 years and it hasn't been addressed, or it's continuing?
From what I know, both parties have pleaded in front of a judge, and they're waiting for the judge to make their decision. That's all I know.
They're running for re-election.
Is that Mr. I'm not even going to respond to that one. Mr. Schulte, do you know if that's your understanding of the legal issue at this point about the road district? Do you have any idea, Mrs. Leesinger, I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name, if that's the status of the legal issues?
The status is
You have to come up here because Dick can't hear.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of one issue, and then I have a suggestion.
From what I understand, it's still in litigation. It was in front of a judge, and it was changed then to include the township. So it's multiple parties, and so that's, I think, what's taking so long.
I just made it more complicated.
Yeah. And I think it's been going on for probably 3
years. Well, I don't think that we have the ability to solve a legal issue that's currently pending in court, because I didn't know about yesterday when I talked to some of the landowners around. But the other thing that I'm concerned about is the fact that we obviously have an applicant who has indicated to other owners that they were going to take care of something that hasn't been taken care of. So the approach that's from the highway into the, I'll call it the road district at this point, how far into the road district do we have responsibility to make a decision based on that particular piece of the road?
In my opinion, a road district entrance like that would be treated as a private driveway is treated, and whatever regulations apply to that. That's my understanding. Actually, a highway would probably even deal with that more often if they're here, but that's my understanding, is these are treated as private entrances, just like anybody's driveway would be going out onto a county or township or state highway.
So,
and if I asked for you to talk, I'm sorry. Sorry if you weren't prepared.
To the right of way.
To the right of way. Okay.
Sorry, DJ.
We would treat a private roadway as a driveway entrance, and we would maintain up to the right-of-way line.
Well,
Thank you.
Got a question. What authority do you have on driveways? What?
We are required to build an initial driveway approach, and then as far as maintenance, we have the private landowner maintain that right-of-way, maintain the approach, and then if there's a problem with the culvert, depending on the problem with the culvert, we would replace the culvert. I know the one that you guys aren't, the Jeffrey Street does not have a culvert, so that would not be in question. But as far as the actual approach, if we were to have Jeffrey Street, or if Jeffrey Street was to be paved, then if we went by on 151 with a paving project, we would pave out to the right-of-way line and maintain that pavement. Since it's gravel, we go through on 151 with our paving, and we come out about 2 feet, which is what our typical paver extension is on that type of project. And so as far as maintenance goes, since this is gravel, we have a 2 feet pavement section that we extend out beyond the pavement limits. If they were to pave it, then we would.
And a culvert would normally be the responsibility of the developer,
the landowner, right? And then depending on the problems that occur over the life of that culvert, if that needed to be replaced, sometimes it's the landowner's responsibility to replace that. Sometimes it is the highway department's responsibility to replace it.
Commissioner Bennigan.
Well, that 2 feet's not going to help much. The issue is, I don't want to be a legal advisor, but I would suggest that we have way too many legal issues that have not been resolved in reference to the road district, and if the seller's responsible for contracts that were signed prior to the road district, and if the road district changed those agreements in any way. But those are legal issues that we're not going to resolve here. I hate to say this, but I do not see us being able to solve this problem without also ending in court, representing our own interest, if you will. So I don't believe that we can come to a conclusion, and I frankly think we have to defer this until the attorneys and the court system makes a resolution.
Commissioner Kelly.
And I would make that motion to defer this for 90 days with a comment if we get a second.
I'll second that.
Now, a comment is, I think, yeah, there are way too many issues out here for us to make a legitimate decision today. Two is, I'm going to request that we introduce a building moratorium at a later meeting to force some resolution to this issue.
I have a motion and a second to defer for 90 days. Commissioner Barth?
Well, as you know, I voted against this project because of the road back in when it was approved on a 3-to-1 vote. I was the one member of the Planning Commission that voted against it. But I feel this is an important project. I'm regretful that we would further delay this facility from coming into existence because of the benefit to the ag community and to the school district in that area. And, you know, just to defer things endlessly, I would hope that perhaps we could make progress with our friends in the Minnehaha County Economic Development and the state's economic development people, and with ourselves chipping in where we can. I just hate to delay it any further. And yes, we did approve a storage facility in that second edition last night at our meeting. The zoning is okay, the planning is bad, and that's where we're at in it. I'm really kind of still uncertain how I'll vote.
Commissioner Bennigan.
Well, I'm just going to reiterate the fact that I think we're being asked to make a decision, which I wish we could make, but I don't think we have the legal authority to make a decision based on the road district terminology that we do not, frankly, understand, or that's being challenged right now in court. So I believe that until a court decision is made, we can mediate whatever both sides would like us to mediate, but I'm not sure that we're going to make any progress since this has already been in the works for umpteen years, and I don't think we have the legal authority to do that.
Commissioner Kelly.
I disagree with Commissioner Barth on I don't think we need to go out and find a funding mechanism for them. I think this is the developer's issue, and perhaps Nick gets involved from a standpoint of just wanting to make a development situation. Yes, this is a good park, but no, if the developer's not going to do anything, we're never going to agree to do anything. We wouldn't do it with a developer that just came in and said, listen, I'll do what I can when I can. That's not the way it runs. So I don't agree that it's our responsibility or even to go out and help them resolve this issue. Them not being the property owners, but them being the developer.
I think it's very unfortunate that we approved something, or not we, but the building committee approved something last night when we have this one here that we're deferring for 90 days, and they don't want any more traffic out there, and it's a mess. And this is not fair to the people who want to put up a oil storage just because they have a bigger truck than somebody who has a mini storage unit. It's not right. That being said, we have a motion and a second on the table to defer for 90 days. Are there any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously to defer for 90 days. You have to come up to the microphone.
Someone mentioned that they had meetings with some owners out there. Or maybe I misunderstood.
What was that?
I thought somebody said a few minutes ago that they had meetings with some of the owners out there.
What? Oh, I think you just mentioned you talked to some people, but I think talk to Nick Fossum, who works on the economic development, and see if they can help you with getting your road district together.
Would the county commissioners be willing to be on that board or be on some advising or
I don't think we have any legal authority whatsoever to even be on it.
And I would caution against you doing that if you're the appellate body that is considering the appeal of a conditional use permit at this point. I think that
Be more trouble.
arguably would be beyond your role at this point.
Yeah.
Not because you don't want to be helpful, but because
Yeah.
you're basically sitting as a reviewing body on a live issue in front of you.
Let me ask again. Could the county start, I guess you probably don't want to start anything else, but get anything going to get a trustee going?
That guy right back there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. All right. 18.
Okay, item number 18, Minnehaha County Commission Liaison Reports, all commissioners.
Are there any liaison reports? Commissioner Barth.
I was up at the East Dakota Water District, and I think there was some comment today in the paper about water testing, and they are getting a grant from, the City of Sioux Falls is getting a grant from East Dakota to put in a device that tests the nitrate level in the river on a continuous basis. It takes a measurement every 15 minutes. And so they'll see how rain affects it, how, high levels, low levels, whatever affect it. Then on the library board, I just would say that there was apparently a fabulous event at the Oakview Library with where they invited, or the Cleveland Elementary School brought over a whole bunch of kids, and everybody got kind of fun activities, and everyone left with a library card. And we talk about the issue of our culture, our crime and stuff like this. Getting our kids involved in things like the library, that's exactly the kind of stuff we need to have. And I'm so proud of the library and the school district working together at that. And I think that's my report.
Any other reports? I'd also say they opened the new library up in Colton.
was
They
there.
had a grand
I was
opening of the new county library. So, yeah, Commissioner Ken.
I thought, as long as you're talking about the Siouxland Library, that I take this opportunity. We've been contacted by the Siouxland Library Network, that the county representative on the library board looks like they moved into city limits, and so we will have to be looking at a new appointment for the rural representative on the library board. Okay. And we have we were asked to put out a press release today seeking applications, and that'll be on our website as well as the application form. So we will be actively seeking a new appointment for us on the library board.
Okay. Madam Chair, and that member the board was going to allow her to stay on, but she wanted to leave since she was no longer living in the rural area.
Okay. Is there any new business? Got one.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Monty Wattenbach, Minnehaha County Information Technology Director. You may recall a couple of months back, I asked if I could apply for a grant for a South Dakota broadband initiative. And I did apply for that grant, and I was informed on Friday that we were approved of that grant. So as part of that process, excuse me, we are asked to sign a grant award agreement. So I apologize we didn't get this on the agenda, but it does need to be turned in this coming Friday. And the agreement basically says that when we receive this equipment, we have to put it in within a period of 90 days, which I have no concerns with, and we have to take pictures of it, just basically be responsible with the grant, and I have no concerns with that. So with that being said, I'm asking you to sign the grant award agreement in the amount of about $8,600 worth of wireless equipment to refresh our existing wireless infrastructure.
Commissioner Benega.
I will need to abstain from that since our organization has been a longtime requester, if that's a word, of those grants, and we've received one grant in the past and actually competed with Monty on this go-round, so
Need
I'm
a-
happy you won, but not happy I lost.
I make a motion to authorize chairman to sign the agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to authorize the chairman to sign the grant award agreement for $8,600.
Give or take.
Okay, so leave the money amount out. But to sign the agreement, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 3-0
One abstention.
with one abstention.
Thank you.
Is there any other new business? Is there any old business? Seeing no old business, we need to adjourn into executive session for personnel matter and
Yes, this should be
reconvene.
very, very brief.
And reconvene about 5 minutes after executive session?
Yes, I just want to remind for people there, we had it scheduled for 10:30. We guessed wrong, and that, but yeah, you're going to do some preliminary budget overview and some preliminary information as you prepare for budget hearings.
Okay, so I need a motion for
I
executive
made
session.
that motion.
Second.
A motion is second to adjourn into executive session for personnel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion.
Downtown Sioux Falls should be going forward.